Welcome back, everybody. I am Randy with Modern Randy, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Niv to Lake deck that has been popping up all over the place and putting up good numbers, honestly, to almost a surprise to some people and to no surprise to other people. Real quick, as always, if you guys are liking what I'm doing, go ahead and leave me a like, leave a comment about what you're playing in the RCQs, what you're seeing in the RCQs. As well as don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up with everything that I'm doing and showcasing. I try to post at least 2 videos a week, but back to this. So this is a Yorion deck, essentially. Well, not essentially, it is. It's a Yorion deck. But you are playing all 5 colors, and really the whole linchpin around the deck is Bring to Light and Niv Mizzet Reborn. So Bring to Light is a 5 mana, 3 generic and a green and blue sorcery. It has a Converge. So when you search your library for an instant, a creature, an instant, or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast a spell. And then you exile that card, shuffle, and then you can cast that card without paying its mana cost. So you have that, and you have Niv Mizzet Reborn, which is all 5 colors, 6/6, flying, and then when it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 10 cards of your library, and then for each color pair, you choose a card that has exactly those colors from among them, and put those chosen cards into your hand, and the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. So basically what that means is like all the 2-color piles, so like Boros, Kagari, things like that. So we're putting a bunch of color, a bunch of cards that are just 2 colors essentially outside of our Niv Mizzet. And also we're playing Omnath, Locus of Creation. This card's good. I don't even really talk about it. There's a whole modern deck that's out there because of this card. This card has caused kind of a couple different bannings as well, things like that. So I'm just going to quickly break down the deck as best as I can because quickly is not a good definition of this deck at all. So basically what this deck is doing is it's trying to cast powerful spells, it's trying to be all 5 colors, and it's trying to just control the game overall. And the way it does that is we have Sylvan Chariot as probably like the biggest linchpin of this deck. Just being able to be a hexproof creature that you can play on turn 2 that adds 1 mana of any color, basically fixes your mana problems. Excuse me. And then we're also playing Up the Beanstalk because this is a great card. Basically, we play a bunch of 5 mana spells to help get value from it. Notably, Leyline Binding is one of the big ones. Let's just draw a card off of that. This helps keeps turning through our deck. We are, a 70 or 80 card deck. Sorry, not 70 card, 80 card deck. So we have a lot of cards to get through. Also notably with Beanstalk, just in case anyone didn't play Up the Beanstalk in Modern when it was legal. So with Bring to Light, you get to trigger Up the Beanstalk because you cast Bring to Light for 5 mana, and then saying like you go grab like a Sunfall. With Bring to Light, you exile the Sunfall and then cast it, so you'll get to draw another card off Up the Beanstalk. So essentially, not only is Bring to Light replacing itself when you have Up the Beanstalk, you're casting a 5 mana spell, you're also then getting to draw another card, so it's just card advantage at that point. But those are our low end drops. We're playing 4 Fable the Mirror Breaker because the card's amazing. I don't need to sit here and explain to you guys why that card's good. If you don't know why it's good, just look at every deck that plays it, and you can probably figure it out from there. And then this is a new one that has just come out from Thunder Junction, from the Big Score extra cards. So it's 3 mana, 2 and a green. Whenever you cast a spell that's 1 or more colors, you may gain 1 life for each of those spells' colors. There's only once per turn, and then you get to tap and add 1 mana of any color. So what this really is a way to help stabilize against any of the aggro opponents or anything like that. So you go turn 2 Sylvan Chariot, turn 3 play Ancient Cornucopium, and then turn 4 you're playing Niv Mizzet Reborn. You're gaining 5 life, plus you're getting a bunch of creatures, a bunch of spells off the top of your deck. You're refueling, you're making a 6/6, just huge. Same thing like if you play this and then play Omnath on turn 4, you're going to gain 4 life, plus you're going to sell up your land drop because you already have Ancient Cornucopium out. So that way you had your 3 lands plus that. Then you're going to gain 4 more life by playing a land. Just a great way to stabilize with this deck. Kind of a huge upgrade that's like quietly talked about. No one's really been talking about. It's not broken. It doesn't do anything amazing right. It's not anything that's like no one looked at this card. Whoa, this is going to break Niv Mizzet. How do we not see this? Like, it doesn't break it. It's that extra glue to help it to where you can gain that life, gain that stability. And then I'm gonna go over essentially all the more than one ofs that we're playing essentially. So the 3 lightning helix. So some of these numbers too, if you guys go look at your deck list and things like that, these numbers do change a little bit. Obviously, it's a 80 card deck. You can kind of toy around with some of the numbers. Something you expect to see more of, less of. You might play more of this, more less of that. Things like that. Lightning helix, big addition to this deck. Again, life gain and removal just helps slow down your aggro opponents, right? That's like the biggest problem with this deck is like aggro decks are things that can prey on this. When you see the Phoenix deck or the Vampires deck, things like that, that is why Nib to Light is doing so well. It preys on these mid-range decks, right? So like, yes, Vampires, wow, just lost my whole train of thought. So yes, Vampires can be a challenge for this deck if they go, turn 3 Vein Ripper, right? That can be a challenge for this deck as a whole. That's a challenge for every deck in the format, right? No one's going, oh, turn 3 Vein Ripper, I'm in. That's a great play. Cool, I don't have to worry about that. No one's thinking that when they play against Vampires. But if you're not going turn 3 Vein Ripper as Vampires, you're going to have a uphill battle with this deck. This deck is this pure card advantage. Like, that's great that you play, Thoughtseize and some Duresses. When I have things like Up the Beanstalk that's letting me draw cards from my 5-mana spells, I have Misery Reborn that's going to theoretically let me draw like 2, 3, 4 spells from just casting it. I have Wandering Mind that lets me draw spells. I have Kolaghan's Command that lets me double spell or buy back things that you help me discard or have made me discard. I have all this card advantage. It's very easy to see how this deck just preys upon those. And then the biggest upgrade to this deck is Pillage of the Bog. So if you look through this entire list, you'll notice that there is no black-green combination besides Pillage of the Bog. And that's because the black-green cards just aren't, the Golgari cards aren't good. There's always been, like, one of the biggest problems with this deck is that the black-green, like, you can get off of, like, Visit Reborn, Dig Deeper and stuff like that, just aren't good. Like, there's not something you're like, oh, wow, I'm really excited to go get a, Abrupt Decay. Said no one ever. But Pillage of the Bog here is a great card. It's great late game. It's a good mid game, and it's even good early game if you're just digging for that land to make sure you hit your land drops with this deck. So, just quick gloss over this in case anyone hasn't looked at it yet or hasn't paid attention to this card that came out. It is a black and a green, and it's a sorcery. You look at the top X cards in your library, where X is twice the number of lands you control. You then put one of those in the hand and the bottom, and the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order, and then also has plot for a green, a black, and one the other, and then you can exile this card and then play it for free on the next turn, basically, or following turns. So, Pillage of the Bog is great because it helps dig what this. I mean, you are 80 cards. That is the biggest problem with this deck. So Pillage of the Bog kind of acts as like a second Bring to Light, especially late game, being able to find kind of anything we're looking for. And then early game, it's great at finding our land drops or maybe a removal spell we're missing. Perfect. And then we have Molten Collapse. This is just a one-of, but just letting you destroy a creature or planeswalker, pretty good. And then Vanishing Verse has kind of become the main card or the main removal spell for this deck, where exiles target monocolored permanent. If you're looking around and you're looking at the top 8 of things like that, everybody's running monocolored spells, right? Like no one's running like multicolored creatures or things like that besides this deck, besides Nib to Light. You look at Phoenix, all the colors are, it's red or blue creatures. There's no red and blue creatures that are running out. Same thing with like, same thing with the Is It in Soul deck. They're all running monocolored creatures. Even Vampires are all running essentially monocolored creatures. They are running the one multicolored creature, the 2-mana Vampire. But outside of that, nobody's running multicolored creatures. So just a good removal spell. And then I have what I'm calling our Bring to Light package, essentially. Things that you are usually searching up for with Bring to Light, depending on what the situation is, right? Obviously, these are all spells that you're also happy to cast. No one's upset about that, about casting it or anything like that. So, just go over this real quick. We have Sunfall, great removal spell. Same thing with Deadly Cover Up. This is great against the Phoenix deck, being able to cast this, and then essentially, if we have at least one other spell in our graveyard too, we'll be able to hit that Collect Evidence 6 because we have Bring to Light is already 5, so we just need any other spell in our graveyard. It's going to be great. Tolsimir, Friend of the Wolves, just a good little card. It makes a 3/3 white wolf creature, and then you can have it fight something, and then you gain 3 life as well. So whether it fights or not, you still gain the 3 life. So it is just 2 bodies, gain some life. Good thing there. Friends of Buzz Crusher, really just there for the Lotus Field deck. Being able to destroy a Lotus Field or get rid of a Lotus Field is huge, since it does have that hexproof. Unmoored Ego, being able to take away somebody's namesake card that they're playing the deck for. Being able to hit Vein Ripper out of vampires, being able to hit Arclight Phoenix, things like that. Just good overall. Defiant Clarion, again, just another good removal spell, as well as also give our creatures lifelink too, because all our creatures are bigger than 3 power. Basically, I mean, outside of Sylvan Carrion. But being able to give our Niv Mizzet, lifelink, being able to clear away the little creatures, and then also attack for 6 damage, huge swing. Valky, got Lies, basically just playing it for the back half, because with Bring the Light, if you go and charge up Valky, you can cast the back half of it for free, so you get a 5 mana instead of 7 mana for the Planeswalker half. Full Guns Command, great to rebuy, like, Niv Mizzet, Omnath, things like that. Just great card. And then Wandering Mind, which is basically a small Niv Mizzet, if you will. So when enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library, then you reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest of the bottom in random order. So notably, you get to hit basically everything besides Niv Mizzet or Sylvan Carrion off of this. So, or Omnath, sorry. And then obviously, Niv Mizzet is also a Bring the Light target. 5 mana, getting a 6/6 that also will draw us hopefully 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. Amazing. And then, of course, we have Leyline Binding, as well as a premium removal spell. Our land base here is obviously, we're playing a bunch of different Triomes, as well as Shocklands. There's the rest of the Triomes. Bunch of different Shocklands. We are prominently base green, so you notice, we're playing 4 Temple Garden, 4 Stomping Ground, all the fun Triomes. We're playing the Mana Confluence because it's a good land fixture, and 4 Fatal Passage, basically just because it goes along with Omnath, as well as being able to pick up each one of our basics, which we're playing 1 of. So, great deck overall. This is going to prey on the mid-range decks. It's going to play on anything that's not super fast. And if you've been paying attention to the meta, you've noticed that a lot of like the aggro, slick shot decks and stuff like that have started to fall off or starting to fall down in the prominence of them. So, I mean, this deck is just popping up because of that. It has a great matchup against Phoenix. It has a great matchup against Vampires. It has a great matchup against all these little like random mid-range decks. It does well against them, and it just kind of eats them for lunch. And that's why you're seeing Niv to Light really come back in full force. And then going over our sideboard here just real quick. Eventually, if my computer wants to not be super slow. So we have Yorion, obviously, because we're playing 80 cards. That's why we're playing the deck. We have the 3 Fatal Push in the sideboard here, just as more removal against the quick aggro decks. Same thing with the Defiant Clarion. Just, more ways to interact with the aggro decks. Playing 2 Mystical Disputes as well as a Dovin's Veto for the control matchups. Your control matchup is not horrendous by any means, because you kind of just go over the top of them, right? You have so many must-answer threats and things like that, like, unless they're closing out the game fast on you, which is also hard because you're playing removal, things like that. It is a challenge for them kind of just to beat this deck. But we have, just, again, a little bit more extra to stop that. We have Ashiok as well as Cabal here. This is for our players who are playing, non-creature spells. So for Lotus Field as well as Phoenix, kind of what both of these cards are here for. And then we have Elder Goddoroth. I know I'm mispronouncing that one. 6/6 Vigilance, Reach, Trample, just there for like kind of the mid-range matchup. Good against Phoenix too. I'd bring this in against just a 5 mana 6/6. Really hard to kill for that deck, as well as it has a Reach, which is huge against the Phoenixes, things like that. Casualties War, again, just for the more mid-range grindy matchups where you're going to be going long, going late, being able to destroy, creature, enchantment, land, planeswalker, artifact, all these things is huge. Notably, it just has 1 or more, so if they only have a creature and a land and a planeswalker, you can just destroy those 3. Worst case scenario, if you're only destroying, land and a creature, you can still only do those 2, things like that. And then we have Run Afoul and Eat Your Poison, Pick Your Poison. Here, definitely for the Vampires matchup, being able to enter a Vein Ripper on turn 3 is really nice, just for 1 mana as well. And then we also have Consecrate and Consume. You're going to bring this in probably against like your Phoenix, as well as the Consume is also good against the Vampire deck, being able to make them sacrifice Vein Ripper. Yeah, they're going to gain 6 life, but you don't care. Your plan is to win on turn 30, not turn 2. Them gaining 6 life is not going to make a big difference. But this is kind of like your sideboard. Obviously, you know, you have a sideboard here. You are still an 80 card deck, so you have to remember that like you're not going to see your sideboard all the time when you're sideboarding in with this type of deck. But yeah, this is the Nib to Light deck that has been popping up, doing well, and kind of dominating. I know as a Phoenix player, this is definitely not a deck that I want to run into per se. It is something that Phoenix can beat. Obviously, this deck doesn't just auto beat Phoenix or Vampires or anything like that. Decks do, it does lose to it, obviously, because if it was, you know, just crushing every deck, obviously you see more of this getting played. The biggest problem with this deck you'll run into is losing to your own mana most of the time. Excuse me, losing to your own mana most of the time. You do need to mulligan semi-aggressively to this, and then just fast starts from people or things like that. Obviously, this deck is going to struggle if your Phoenix player is putting into 3 Phoenixes into play on turn 3. Like, most decks are losing to that, right? Like, it's not crazy. This deck's going to lose to that as well. Same thing, this deck can struggle with an early Vein Ripper against Vampires, or against Is It in Soul, just going, you know, making a 5/5 on turn 2 and just kind of putting down a lot of pressure very fast. Same thing with anything, right? Like if this deck can get folded by anything just as well as it can fold just about anything in the format as well. Kind of how it is with all Magic, right? There's no one deck that's been dominating or taking out everything and anything. But it is a very powerful deck. It is something that if you enjoy the Yorion strategies and stuff like that, I implore you to play this. Obviously, you can take a look at this deck and see that it's not a cheap deck to build. The land base alone is what's going to really hurt you. I mean, most of these cards in the main deck aren't like super expensive. Fable obviously is still worth money, things like that. But like, you know, like your namesake Bring to Light card is worth, I think, a nickel. That card for some reason never spiked up in price at all. Omnaths I think are still a couple bucks, and Visits are a couple bucks. Things like that. But like, yeah, it's a very fun deck. A deck I've never actually played myself. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have. It's not a style I really enjoy, though. I don't enjoy the Yorion styles, and I definitely don't ever want to shuffle an 80 card deck in a paper tournament. I don't play Commander, so I'm not going to want to play Commander in 1v1, essentially. But it is a good deck, and I've lost to it before. I know it's a deck that has done well. It's not something that is bad by any means, and it's definitely been doing well. And it's something you need to have on your radar and understand your game plan against this deck. I do recommend not trying to go long against this deck. That's not a good game plan against this deck. Obviously, you can go long against it. You can run it out of card advantage. You counter, you know, Dim Mizzet. That stops them from rebuilding, things like that. I mean, the biggest problem against this deck is Up the Beanstalk is something that you really hope they never have, because that just gives them so much more card advantage, where like, alright, you countered in Visit, well, I'm still gonna get to draw off Up the Beanstalk. Or you counter my Bring to Light, well, I still get to replace that card with Up, because I drew off Up the Beanstalk. And you know, they have multiple Up the Beanstalks, and there's so much card advantage they're going through. So just kind of an idea for you about how to attack the deck and things like nature. But as always, I am Randy here with Modern Randy. Continuing to go through the RCQ season of Pioneer and let you know what's going on out there, what's doing well. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you like what I'm doing, want to keep up with what I'm doing. I will see you guys next time.